Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's really a pleasure to be with you and to again discuss such important topics like we do on A Time for Truth show. Many of you want to know, how do I get to subscribe? Very simple. You see it there on the screen in a few moments. You go on YouTube. And when you get on YouTube, you look for A Time for Truth show. And at that point, you look for the subscribe button, click on it, and you will be a subscriber. You'll be availed of all the previous segments and episodes. We would love to have you be a part of our group. So tonight we have something that's really, really crucial in our world. During COVID, drug use went up about 40%. It was already horrific. And during COVID, 44% increase globally. So tonight's topic with our speaker is very important. Buddha, if you put his pictures up on the screen, I want to introduce him to our viewers. Mr. Bobby Wiggins, an extraordinary human being. He overcame his lifelong addiction through the Renown program, a wonderful program, in 1977. And he's helped thousands of people recover from their addictions. There you see him. For nearly 40 years, he's worked hands-on in a rehab setting, helping drug addicts and alcoholics recover from their addiction, recover their lives. His accomplishments include reaching over 900,000 school children with live drug education presentations on 5 continents. Audiovisually reaching over 1.3 million school children in over 11,000 schools throughout America. Mr. Wiggins is featured in 2 award-winning videos that won first place in the prestigious Aurora Awards for educational DVDs. The first one, Ecstasy, The Real Story, 2006. The second one, Drugs and Emotions. He has been featured in the 10 Things Your Friends May Not Know About Drugs series, showing on YouTube.com with over 2 million visits. Mr. Wiggins' presentations and lectures include the NFL Alumni Association, training ex-NFL players to deliver drug education in Northern California. By special invitation, Robert was invited to speak at Britain's House of Lords to educate members of Parliament on substance abuse. And he's delivered his drug education program to 5 top universities in India and trained agents for the Drug Enforcement Agency of the Philippines to deliver the drug education curriculum to students throughout the schools in Manila. Bobby was contracted by consultants for the FAA to educate pilots on the airports throughout New England and created a drug education curriculum for high school students. As an independent science study that he conducted on that curriculum, the results were published in a major medical journal. And the United States Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration has approved Mr. Wiggins' Narconon Drug Education Program is a reviewed and evidence-based program which allows governments and schools to have a program that works and to have funding so our tax dollars are going to help our children and help to rehabilitate our communities, making them safe, violence-free, free of drugs. Currently, Mr. Wiggins is working with the youth detention centers and other youth groups in various areas in Florida to change the perception of drugs in our youth. An amazing man. There you see him again on the screen. Buddha, if you bring him up live, let's bring him up and welcome Mr. Robert Wiggins to a Time for Truth show. There he is.
Hi, Ben.
Hey,
thank you so much.
You're a superhero.
Well, you know, I just keeping on, I guess. The kids respond, and you know, it just to watch their faces and the response to the truth, basically, about drugs. It's just been so rewarding. So I guess we just keep going.
Absolutely, and one of the things, you know, is that you've done so much. You've established, you know, really good, stable points so that, you know, our country can go forward. And, you know, with the country being devastated by violence, by bigotry, social unrest, economic unrest, with all this drugs going on and associated with shootings, what you're doing is so important. You know, I'm so happy you took the time to be on the show tonight.
Absolutely, my pleasure. My pleasure. And hopefully, hopefully I can relay some pertinent information.
Absolutely. Let's get right to it. What's the best way? You got parents out there watching, or you maybe have brothers and sisters. What's the best way to reach kids with this message that you're carrying?
Well, great question. You know, with the younger kids, and even a lot of times the high school students, you know, most people will try to come in really seriously on it, and that's not the kid's reality. He's light. He's into games. He's into, you know, the lighter side of life. So what I try to do is I try to communicate the information in a light way. Just keeping it like playful, and come in serious on the points that you need to be serious on, but keep it playful, keep it in games so they actually absorb and they retain that information.
That's a very good point, because otherwise, if they don't hear it, what's the use of the whole presentation?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, as soon as the parent or the teacher, they get real serious about something. What I noticed right out of the gate, you know, after the first 40,000 kids or so, the kids would shut out. You know, they'd shut it out. It would be like, boom, oh, this is just, you know, it's too much. And then I found when I got them involved, and it was kind of like we made a game out of it, they would literally absorb that information, and they could, you know, they could feed it back to you. And it made all the difference in the world in terms of their, you know, because knowledge empowers the person, but they have to be able to receive that knowledge. And that's the key. That's the key to reaching our youth is, okay, you got to get serious a little bit. There's important points in that presentation that you got to bang. You just got to punch it in. But for the most part, keep it playful, because that's what they relate to.
Absolutely. And what do you feel is the solution for this drug crisis, not just in the U.S., but really it's globally?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Just a quick story, if I may. I raise funds for nonprofits, and about 6 months ago, I was at a gentleman's house, And, I was there for about an hour, and his son was there, who he was about 34 years old. And he saw me to the door, and we were walking outside, and we were talking. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he goes, "Wait a minute, you were at my school." And I'm like, "Where'd you go to school?" He told me the school. And I said, yeah, I remember that. It was around the year 2000. He goes, "That's right." He goes, "You were like showing us what the drug dealers' lines were." He goes, "I mean, you gave us the data on drugs and why you wouldn't take it, but then you did a little skit to show exactly what the drug dealers would say." He said, "Mr. Wiggins, I got to tell you something. As I got older, 14, 15, 16, those were the exact sales lines. Every time they would say the sales line to me, I just start laughing. And I go, oh, it's exactly what he said. It's exactly what we drilled in that classroom." So empowering the kids, I tell them that you're not going to get a lot of help out there. Unfortunately, drugs are an epidemic because it's one of the biggest profit makers on planet Earth. And so you have to be empowered. You have to be ready with what they're going to hit you with. And I found it interesting. He said, yeah, I stayed drug-free all through high school, all through college, because I knew. And he said it was very funny because every single time they'd come with the same sales line. Hey, it's all natural. It's herbal. All the lines. And he said, you got me ready for that. So, my belief is it's like we have to have comprehensive drug education, and it has to be kept at the kids' level so they understand it. And honestly, we've already proven it scientifically that if you give them the right information, they absorb it, that they will stay off drugs. Not just that, there's kids on drugs during that study that literally came off drugs and stayed off drugs 30 days, 6 months later, a year later. And that's really the key is, empower the kids with the data, but also show them what they're going to get hit with.
Well, that makes so much sense because, that's the best way to actually get reality on something and for them to be protected because, by having it before it happens, then when it happens, they're not surprised, they're not intimidated, and they, like you said, that must have been. I would love to have seen that on a video with a kid laughing, and that, I would be very interested if maybe what you even did rehabilitated not only and safeguarded that kid, but rehabilitated the drug trafficant when he felt like a fool because the kid laughed at him. And maybe it made him look at what he was doing and that he was just doing something for money and saying things just to sell something. That would be very interesting if the power of what you did may not have even affected the drug trafficker.
Yeah, it's so funny that, the kids can handle it. If you treat the student, you treat the kid like they're intelligent, which they are, and give them what they need, they can actually handle the rest. They really can. They can go out there and they can handle themselves. And we saw it over and over again from different, we'd always interview kids on camera after they received the talk. What did you get? And a lot of them, they always say the same words, we don't like being treated like we're stupid, like just say no. Or, it's bad, don't take it, you can die. All that stuff, it makes us feel like we're stupid. But the difference, the kids, this thing, I just didn't pull it out of the air. I would listen to the kids. What does the kids say in their survey? What's important to them? How do we relay this so that it'll actually make a difference in their lives? And basically they said, you told me exactly why you don't take drugs, what drugs do to you, and it all made sense. And I could make up my own decision. And basically, the kids would say, you gave me the space to make my own decision. And that's important with kids.
You know what? That's so good that you've done that and that you've proven it and that it works. Because in today's world, you know, we're looking for hope, we're looking for good solutions, and you've established one. And as you've done that, I was going to ask you, what do you feel, you know, because you really have done so much over the years, what do you feel is the most important piece of information that somebody young should actually know?
Well, it's the basic definition of a drug, right? I do this little skit. Sometimes I do it with teachers, right? Where I'll pull one of the teachers out of the audience, maybe the one that looks the youngest. And I'll say, what's your name? And my name's Cindy. I go, Cindy, can you do a little skit with me up here? And yeah, sure. I said, well, Cindy, the first thing I want to do is let's pretend that you and I are 12 years old. We're in the 7th grade. And okay. So I'll say to her, I'll go, Cindy, have you heard about the Zoofles? And she's like, the what? The Zoofles. And she like shakes her head no. I said, well, all the kids are talking about these Zoofles, right? As a matter of fact, I heard some of the kids over there, they're taking Zoofles, but everybody's talking about it. And all of a sudden I'll go, the more I talk about Zoofles and the less Cindy knows, what's the only possible thing that can start to happen in Cindy's mind? She's going to start to get more and more, what? Curious, right?
Yes.
Because she doesn't know. It literally sucks the person into it. So I say to her, okay, Zoofles, Zaffles, Vluffles, Vrugs, drugs, doesn't matter what sound comes out of your mouth. If the person literally does not know what that is, the only possible thing that can happen is they get curious. So at that point, I give the kids the basic definition of a drug, which is drugs are essentially poisons. What blew my mind when I first started doing this was how many kids did not know that drugs were a poison. And it's the most basic definition of a drug there is. And there are literally, I researched this, there are literally hundreds of science papers published in medical journals that allude to the fact that a drug is essentially poison. Once they have that base, right, which is now they know what a drug is. Now we can begin to talk about it and what they do. So that's kind of like the foundation to the entire thing is drugs are essentially poisons. A small amount of a drug will act as a stimulant. It wakes you up. More of that same drug, exact same drug, will begin to slow you down. Eventually, it will put you to sleep. Enough of the drug fast enough kills you dead. And I have them drill those 3 parts over and over and over again. I said, oh, make sure we get this because I'm going to quiz you a little bit at the end of the talk. And they're like, yeah. And every single time, the whole group, I'll go, drugs are essentially what? The poisons. And they get it because it's drilled in and we keep it playful, just getting that piece of information. Anyhow,
Nice.
That's probably more than you asked for, but there you go.
No. You know what? I'm very interested, and you got my attention. I like hearing your voice, you know, and you actually are a very good, I could say, professor, mentor, trainer, because you do it in doing it, and which is the best way to learn anything is just by doing it. And I'm just enjoying listening to you, and the drug is a poison, and you know what you talked about, the different levels of it, which is so true, because something I never knew, that a little bit of arsenic actually stimulated you. And I never realized that arsenic stimulated you. I just thought it just killed you, but which is proof of what you were saying. But let's go on, because you know there's so much I want to ask you.
Sure.
Do you feel that there's an optimum age to educate kids?
Yeah, actually, and this is what I found over hundreds of thousands of kids. The perfect age seems to be right around 10 years old. They're old enough to they've seen enough now to comprehend what I'm saying, yet they're young enough that, you know, in most cases, not all, but they're young enough they haven't been exposed yet. And their attention on it, they have a little bit of curiosity because they've heard about it. And it's enough once you give those kids stable pieces of information, they really absorb it. And again, with obviously 10 years old is about the 5th grade. So obviously you have to really keep it playful with them. And then only in certain points, bang, come in with the seriousness so they understand that people actually can die from this. But basically, this is why you wouldn't take it. And I found, interestingly enough, with groups of kids having done that, you know, 10 years old, 10 years old, 10 years old, it changes the entire area in terms of, you know, substance abuse and the use of drugs. So, yeah, 10 years old, that's about the optimum. 9 years old is great. 10, 11, now you're getting, and now you got more of a challenge when they get to be 12 or 13. That's puberty for kids, and it's a very interesting time. You can still get the message across, but it takes a lot more work.
Very interesting. That's so true. Very, very interesting. There's so many factors that come in there: hormonal, social, dating. You know, being a teenager, your body changing, everything evolving is so true. You know, and so you know, Narconon actually helped you, and I see that you do so much with it. And what makes Narconon drug education, you know, so successful?
You know, I think first of all, what we try to, you know, it's a worldwide network, and we have a lot of guys that went through the program themselves. So, you know, they'll all acknowledge the fact that Narconon saved their lives, changed their lives. And so they tend to have a little bit more passion when they're going out there. A lot of them have younger brothers, sisters, cousins, etc. And it really comes home to them, you know, especially after they messed up their own life and all of a sudden, boom, they have a new life, that they passionately go out there with the message. And as long as they're like, you know, they don't make the kids wrong, they keep it light, but the passion that they have in their message is like, there's nothing like it. The kids are just like, whoa, they're riveted. So I think that's one of the success points about Narconon. And also keeping it simple. You know, in training guys, I try to keep it simple. One of the guys I was training, his name was George, and he was an ex-Hell's Angel. He was a rehabilitated guy. He was a lieutenant for the Hells Angels, if you can only imagine. And when he did his program, I can only imagine the handful they had of getting this guy through the program. And later on, I was training him to do drug education. And it was very funny because we were going over different things. And he looks at me and he says, hey, Bobby. I said, yeah, George. He says, I don't have to do this same shtick you got here, right? I mean, you got your own thing, and I'm who I am. And I said, that's right, George. It's beautiful. The only thing I ask is you get this one piece of information across to the kids. Make sure they get that. And you can do your George thing all day long. And it's very funny. I went his first presentation. This guy was so real. First of all, he's about 6'2", and he's owned a gym, a fighter, you know. And he says, "Hey, can I wear this cut-off sweatshirt?" And I said, "Yeah, let's keep it real with these kids, right?" So we had seniors in high school in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And he stands up in front of 100 kids with the muscle t-shirt, and he's massive. And he looks out and he goes, "Hey." And the kids all look at him like, "What is this?" Right? He goes, "Hey." And all the kids go, "Hey." He says, "Right, my name's George." And he gives his history, and then he goes in and he gives the kids the piece. And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. Every single kid was paying total attention to this guy because he was coming from the heart, you know? And that's
Wow.
what changed. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I would love to have been there. I got a vivid picture as you were telling me. That is fantastic. I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been a great show. We've run out of time, but you know, as always, it's very live. And for those of you out there watching, go find Narconon. Rehabilitate those people out there that have to be rehabilitated. Let's educate them. And Bobby Wiggins, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, Ben, I love what you do. I love what you do for your community. You completely rock. Thank you very, very much.
Well, let's follow. Thank you so much. Let's follow Mr. Wiggins' lead. Let's educate and go, hey, hey, and let's make a drug-free world and use Narconon. There you go. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got. But the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet